I mean, I remember when I was tired years ago, people were like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you tired? You slept well. Well, maybe there's a billion other things that are going on, or maybe there's a thyroid issue, or maybe, you're grieving, or I'm talking about rest that can be sleep, but is something deeper than sleep, because most of us are not resting well when we sleep. Movement is medicine, music is medicine, food is medicine, and they will all help you rest beyond sleep. When people are in extremely anxious states and trauma states, some of them can't rest because you start to rest and there's space there, and the panic is like, now she's listening to me. Now I can dump all my stuff out at her.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life Edge podcast. I'm your host, Chris Staffelt. I have my good friend Elizabeth Wells with us, joining us today. And so, Elizabeth, why don't you take a brief moment real quick and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, Chris. A brief moment. I'm going to try and... somebody many years ago called me an artist with the tools of healing. So I'm a creator across the board in many fields, and I've been in the healing arts for eternity as well. Working in the healing aspect, the creative aspect, working with men, women, and children, supporting their peace, their creativity, their aspirations to find greater harmony in their lives and activate their creativity in the world. So I'm a writer, an actress, a teacher, a healer, a storyteller, a poet. I mean, it just goes on and on. But I think that might encapsulate it a little bit. You know me. You could ask me. You can tell them what I do.
No, so there's a lot there.
Yeah,
I would love to dive in a little bit more. Let's just start with some of your writings, and
okay,
because I think I've read through some of the stuff that you've written, and there's a lot of transformative power there. So
thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about where that comes from?
The writing, I've written since I was a little girl. I remember I've always been a poet from childhood. There's a poem that I wrote, that my mother wrote, that said I wrote when I was 7 or 8, and it said something like, "Poem, poem, you're not here, you're not there, you're not under the chair. Oh, poem, poem, where can you be? Please don't hide from me." It was something very simple, and that's not it exactly. And then when we went to Europe when I was very young for a while, and my mom gave me a little diary, a book, and said, "This is your diary." And I never stopped writing, and it was a place of great safety for me, a container of peace, inspiration, and creativity. And I write everything from kind of quasi, spiritual channeled writing, let's say. I don't know how else to say it, where you just you're hearing beautiful wisdoms coming and you're writing them down, to great comfortable. Now my comfort comes, compassion coming through the writing, from that to one woman shows, to articles and essays, to naughty bawdy fun monologues. So people read the span of my work and they go, how did one person write all this? So yeah, writing is not a difficult act for me. It's a place of safety and love for my heart, and connection, a deep connection to myself, and to, for lack of a better word, spirit, or to what we can't see, that brings nourishment to my soul, whatever one wants to call that. Inspiration.
Yeah. No, and I love that, because just listening to you speak, you can tell by the tone of your voice, by how you communicate, that there's a peace about how you speak, and it's very soothing to even hear you just on this conversation right now. And I think
You're making me smile.
before we've talked about the fact that you do, you do readings to people to help put them at ease, and you have different ways of helping people get into better modes of rest. And
Yes, I have MP3s, all sorts of things in that department. And then I have a course about how to rest in 4 easy steps. And it's called A Loving Guide for the Wearied, the Anxious, and the Grieved.
Hmm. I love how that kind of embodies basically everyone, because I think a lot of us can find ourselves on the spectrum of any of those topics you just discussed. And I want to ask you, like, how important is rest in life? I operate very, I guess you could say I'm kind of pushing the envelope on the lack of rest that one could receive. And there's times, last night was one of them, where I go to try and actually get some rest, and I lie in bed and I can't stop thinking about all the things that I still need to get done. And then that causes me to not sleep, which then I just get up and I end up working until all hours of the night when I should be resting. And it's a bit of anxiety, restlessness. What would you say to somebody in my situation?
Wow. I have a lot to say. First of all, I'll send you a bunch of my MP3s when we're done, so we'll put them on in the evening. I wanted to ask you as you were speaking what rest meant to you, because you talked about sleep, and I'm thinking about sleep as different from rest.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead. Yeah.
I would describe rest as a period of shutting down my brain and my body, allowing the biological systems of my body to go and repair anything from whether that be my workouts, or allowing it to then go cleanse my body and my brain of all the bad stuff that we produce throughout the day, right? And then waking up feeling refreshed, like I can then go repeat the cycle of whatever it was I did the previous day. So
Right. Okay.
that's my definition of rest.
All right. So, sleep, really good sleep, is restful. But as you described, not everybody sleeps. We go to bed, we work too late, we have a billion things on our plate, and we're staying awake all night on some level or form, and we're waking up restless. And the fact that we can't sleep is making us more anxious because we're thinking, what do we have to do the next day? And am I going to have the energy to do it? And I've got to be on my top of my game. And it just becomes this little cycle. So I'm taking rest here a little apart from sleep. Wonderful sleep gives us rest, and getting rest is like wonderful sleep. Same with meditation. I kind of differentiate them, but a deep meditation is very restful. In deep rest states, it can be like meditation. I'm talking about rest, the kind of rest that your body rests, that you feel a deep calm in your heart, that your eyes start to rest, your jaw starts to rest, that there becomes a spaciousness in and around you that is nurturing to you.
Mm.
It's the kind of rest that you can also get even in activity when a sense of wonder comes to you. When you're in nature and you see something and it's like, oh, wow. And like everything opens for a moment. And that's kind of a restful moment. There's this curiosity, there's this wonder. So I'm talking about rest that can be sleep, but is something deeper than sleep because most of us are not resting well when we sleep,
Mhm.
which is a very ironic thing. And it's a perspective and having an insight into what it might mean. So I have an acronym for rest, and that's in the course. And the acronym is simply relax, exhale, surrender, trust. Relax, exhale, softly surrender, and tenderly trust. Those four words, if any one of them can warmly wrap itself around you, will serve you in moving yourself into a restful state. And even as you think about your work, you can think, relax about my work. Let me just exhale it out. Let me just surrender it all for right now. Let it just all be on the table as it is without my having to do anything or change anything. And let me trust that either it'll work out or it won't, and that's okay. I mean, sometimes people come so broken from grief, and I'll talk a little bit about that. That there's like I don't trust anything, and I'm like, that's okay. Then just lean into that. Trust that you feel that there's nothing to trust. Let that be okay right now. Don't force yourself into another state. So, when we're forcing ourselves into something in our lifetimes and through our work lives and society, we're always often in a mode of strategizing, strategy and fixing. How can I solve this problem? How can I solve this problem? That's not a restful state. And it's often in the restful states that the problems get solved. We come out of a deep, there's a wonderful quote. Let me see if I can find it. I have a webinar called Rest in Times of Unrest about the 8 reasons to rest. And in one of I'm going to find it for you. This is a quote that applies, when I'm talking about our
Yeah.
work life. And then it says, after periods during which one has actively tried to solve a problem, but has not succeeded, the sudden right orientation of the situation, and with it the solution, tend to occur at moments of extreme passivity. A well-known physicist in Scotland once told me that this kind of thing is generally recognized by physicists in Britain. We often talk about the 3 B's, he said. The bus, the bath, and the bed. That's where the greatest discoveries are made in our science. And that was somebody named Wolfgang Kohler. So it's this sense of, we work, but then we have so much to do, we continue working, and we don't take the rest that we need to congeal, all that's been going on, to let it come together and
Yeah.
sit and find new insight. And that's one thing, that's one benefit of rest.
It's so interesting you say that, because there's something that I've noticed and my wife has noticed, that because I like to, I don't, I don't spend very much time wasting time. So even if I have to, for instance, do the dishes, put the dishes in the dishwasher or whatnot, I'm not focused on doing the dishes. I'm going to have a podcast going. I'm going to have a YouTube video going of learning something else. I'm going to be on a call with a client or something, and I don't really take that time to allow, like you said, that my brain to debrief, to think through a lot of the stuff that's gone on. And what my wife and I have both noticed is, I have a dog, and so I try and get him out 2 or 3 times a day, if not more. On the times that I don't take my cell phone with me
Right,
to
right.
listen to a podcast or check social media are the times that I actually have some of the biggest breakthroughs, where I'm actually just walking the dog, enjoying the warmth of the sun and fresh air, and I solve so many more of my problems on that short 20-minute walk than I do if I sit and try and actually brute force through the problem for 3 hours. And it's a really fascinating thing, to where we're starting to, if there's something I can't solve, I actually have gotten to the point where I don't focus a lot of time and energy on it as much anymore as I used to, and I allow the answer to then come to me during those dog walks or in the shower, like weird places. But that's now that we're having this conversation, those are the only times I actually allow my brain like
To
fit
rest.
exactly to slow
Yeah, to
down.
rest. Yeah, I was going to mention because you when we met many months ago or a year ago, and you talked about taking your dog out for a walk, and I was like, that's a form of rest for you, and we are multitasked. The brain actually doesn't multitask well. We think it does, but it to find moments in your day where you can stop and do one thing is an extra, just doing the dishes and feeling the sensation of the water on your hands, the warmth on your hands, engaging your senses in other ways to enjoy the moment is restful
Mm-hmm.
and it brings peace to the body. When you're in a shower, you're just showering, you're not doing anything else. That's when sometimes when I used to put makeup on or something, my little voice would give me information. The intuitive voice just starts kicking in. It's that the pauses in life, and we talk about the pause between the breath, but we have pauses in our lifetime. I'm a person that likes a lot of transition. I don't like running from one appointment to another, to another, to another. Maybe that's because I carry so much in my brain, or just because I want to slow down and breathe into the transition and set myself up in a kind of a spiritual way with my soul for the next engagement without carrying everything from the last engagement into the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would you so we kind of talked a little bit about my struggles and issues with rest. What would you say to somebody who's dealing with either extreme grief or extreme anxiety where
Yeah.
like during the day they may not be physically exerting a lot and maybe they're just sitting at home but
Yeah.
they can't slow down that brain and it's just in either constant fear mode from anxiety or just the depression from grief. How does someone then step out of that and actually allow
Yeah.
themselves to rest?
I think that's really interesting. I mean, you're talking about a kind of form of trauma, right?
Mm,
And this course evolved out of that for me in a certain way. My mother was the great rester. She taught meditation when I was a little girl and yoga. And she had the ability to close her eyes at any time in life and put a cloth over her eyes and just go in this deep state of rest for 10 or 15 minutes before a party or something. She would get everything ready and she'd go into her bedroom, put a cloth over her eyes, and just completely let go of everything and then come back out and refreshed. So I was
mm,
living with her, in the last years of her life, for many, many years actually. And she would always say to me, rest, go rest, just take a break. And I'd say, yeah, okay. And I never did. I
mm,
was constantly going because when you're taking care of someone else, you are constantly going and you're trying to take care of yourself and putting out fires and the whole thing. So after she died, there's grief and there's traumatic, there's all different forms of grief. I was traumatized by what happened. And it was her who I kept hearing her say, rest. She would always say it 3 times. She'd say, rest, rest, rest. You need to rest. I can come to you and rest. I can lift you up and rest. Because I was just broken.
mhm.
Um, and this, you're asking me one question. I'm answering another actually, and I will get back to it. Um, because as a meditator for somebody my entire life practically, I could no longer meditate because my brain, every time I tried to be quiet, my brain would sort of go into the trauma. Would loop back into the bad memories. So I didn't meditate for a while. I'd light a ghee lamp, a oil type lamp at night, and sit with the pictures of my parents and friends who'd passed on, and I just hang out with them and talk to them. That became my meditation. So a lot of people in these extreme or anxious states, trauma states, can't, if they've had a meditation practice before, sometimes they're like, I can't do that anymore, or it's the form needs to change, because everybody thinks meditation's the be all. Not everybody, but a lot of people like meditation's great for everybody. I'm like, no, not all the time. Believe me, I've been meditating for decades. But you've asked me, It's true. When people are in extremely anxious states and trauma states, rest can, some of them can't rest because you start to rest and there's space there and the panic is like, now she's listening to me. Now I can dump all my stuff out at her. Because we're often pushing, there's several things that are going on. We can be pushing everything we don't want to think about away, and then there's a space and it wants to come up and be seen and heard and talk to you. And then there's also free-floating anxiety, when the body just starts doing something that's like, feels like panic and anxiety. And we may not know what it's about, or we may associate it with something. So there's different things for different people in these, there's not one way to broadcast how to rest, because each person has something different and a key for them. And that's one of my specialties, finding what's the key for you. For somebody, it might be finding a way to, it might be writing, journaling out some of the stuff that's going on, so that when we rest or sleep, it's already out of our bodies and our minds because we've written about it. For another person, it might be, so say in a Vipassana meditation, mindfulness meditation, they might say, watch your thoughts, that kind of thing. Well, what happens for a lot of meditators, and definitely if you're in a trauma state, it's not just watch the thought. You go on the journey with the thought. And that's not what meditation's particularly, oh, I'm going to go on this whole journey. That's like, no. Where am I going with this? So a way to do this is to keep your eyes open, to go out into nature, and to take deliberate moments to observe the natural world or something just right around you, like you do with your dog. You can do it in a very diffuse way, like I'm going to take a walk with my dog, or you can do it in a very specific way. There was a woman, her name is Myrtle Archer. I wrote a book years ago called Women Celebrate the Gift in Every Moment. And it was many stories by various women that I, authored and edited. And she wrote a story in there called The We of Life. She had a very terrific tragedy hit her family, huge, huge tragedy. And she said the only way she could start to gain any clarity, focus, was to focus on the we of life. So she'd watch an ant crawl. She'd look at the way salt landed on her egg. She took that power of observation down, and in that found some sort of quiet or ability to be with the rest of the world or rest. Does this make any sense?
Yeah.
Is this even related to what you asked me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You got a lot's going on in your mind.
Yeah, I was just gonna. So you started to get into some like actionable ways of resting. We talked about me and walking the dog, and some people in journaling. What would be some other actionable items that people could do to try to achieve that rest? If like we'll go with anxiety and maybe somebody who has, I know someone who's right now is really just stricken by anxiety, and it's causing them to not even be able to function like a normal person right now.
Yeah.
What are some tips or tricks that you
Okay.
may have for somebody in that situation?
Exercise. Really, I'm not kidding. I mean, sometimes getting up and movement. In an extreme situation, you might not want to rest. You might want to take care of the physical body in a different way. Again, there's not a one answer for all people. You might want to see how that person, I would talk with them at length, to find the key for them. It might be like, exercise. It might be journaling. It might be watching a silly comedy. It might be that they need community, because being alone, I think in grief or anxiety, being alone is terrible sometimes, because you want community to hold you. And sometimes the person that made you feel safe left the world. Their very presence helped you to rest. So if something has been, taken out of your life, it might not even be a person, it might be a non-death grief, some other incredible anxiety or trauma. And what made you feel safe is no longer there. You're not held. You're not accompanied. And accompaniment and being held and having a sense of belonging to a community that loves you unconditionally and supports you unconditionally, where you can feel safe, starts to quell the anxiety. To not fight against it. Because if you start thinking, something's wrong with me, oh my God, it's just going to make it go up. So if somebody needs help, get help. If someone needs herbs, functional, herbs to help them. I mean, some people do, medical, whatever, drugs. Get the help that you need, to attend to what's going on, and let the rest arise.
Yeah.
To say for one person, walking a dog's great, animals. I know for me, animals, like if I see a bunny in the backyard, I'm like, a bunny! I get so excited, a bunny! And I go out and I hang out with a bunny, or I take my camera. Photography, taking a camera and looking through a lens, a different lens at the world is very restful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a zillion ways, yeah.
I was actually kind of caught back by your answer there, or caught a little off guard. I feel I 100% agree with the exercise portion. I think getting out and sometimes moving your body. I interviewed a guy the other day, and he put it this way, saying that movement can be medicine. Movement is medicine.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
Yes,
I think that is such an unpopular opinion today.
yes.
And that's why I was kind of caught off guard, because you think, well, we're talking about rest, but now you're telling me to go out and move. And like we
But
talked,
movement is restful. You know how people exercise and then they're just relaxed?
yep.
And you know how people run and they get into the runner zone?
Hmm.
And everything sort of leaves their mind? Like
Well,
your
and
friend said,
too,
God, sorry.
like, I wonder if some of the anxiety that I know that people deal with is because their body physically has energy that hasn't been spent. And
Yes,
so mentally they may be a little bit tired, but the body's like, hey, we've got a lot more to go. And because they haven't exerted any of that physical energy, there's this imbalance now in the body,
yes.
and people just don't know how to deal with that. But to a lot of people, movement can be uncomfortable because they don't do it often enough, and it just becomes this weird random cycle.
And finding the movement that works for you. But if I don't do, I'm actually making some notes because so many things are coming to my mind here. So, if I, you know, yoga, stretching, swimming, whatever it is for me, you know, it's like sunshine to the life.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. You reminded me because there's days in my past where I wouldn't eat enough during the day, and at night I'd wake up hungry. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to eat a bowl of cereal. You know what I mean? I mean, because something didn't get satisfied in my justice, not enough calories or whatever it was. And the same, we're physical beings.
Mm. And
And people, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
no, I just love that you're approaching it as a whole. A lot of times, I've listened to other podcasts, and too many people focus just on one very specific aspect of health and wellness. And to me, the conversations we've had, and even this conversation, is you're approaching it as a whole. Like, rest is important, but I was just viewing rest as just sleep. That was what I considered rest.
I
But
know. Yeah.
you've made it a more broad term than that by including the time that you shut your brain down, but also the time that you're up and moving. What do you put in your body? How are you feeling your body? Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough food? Are you eating the right foods? And to me, that is so important because I think all of that plays such a factor, not just in your physical health, but in your mental health and well being as well.
Yeah. Food is medicine. And I have a talk that I've done years ago, and I'm redoing it now for the public called Diet is Lifestyle, Food is Medicine. The right foods can support or disorient rest. Sugars are going to make you jagged. Not most people. Emotionally, it can rack you up. Heavy, the time of days you eat, the time of day you eat, and what you're eating.
Mm.
There's other ways to rest too. Is sound and music, using your own voice, listening to music, humming, singing, vibration in your own body can be incredibly soothing. Soothing. Music is medicine, right? Movement is medicine, music is medicine, food is medicine, and they will all help you rest beyond sleep. In fact, a friend of mine said you need to change the title of the course because most people think they know how to rest. How to rest. People go think, nah. This is much more about finding a place beyond the restless sleep that we get at night.
Hmm.
And
So,
I thank you for helping me bring it full circle here with all the different parts. Go ahead. What was your next
yeah, I
question?
was, because you started to touch on something there that I see a lot of people take things too much to one extreme where they'll find that eating this food made me feel better. So that therefore, this is all I'm going to focus on is eating this special food. Or
And
maybe
everyone else should eat it too.
exactly. Or maybe this one meditation is what changed my life. Like I felt good after this. So now I'm going to do this one meditation for 9 hours a day and neglect everything else, which then causes chaos everywhere else, which makes the meditation not work. And I think as people, we like to, well, we found this one specific lever, this one tool that's really working to help us feel better, to help us rest, and then we try and go all in on that rather than balancing it out very well across the broad spectrum of life.
Yeah, we get excessive, and then of course, like I said, we tell everybody else, "You've got to do this. This will save your life." Um, I think that's why, you know, sometimes people on a broad level, because I work with individuals and I'll work with individuals in groups, because each person has a key to what's specifically right for them. And what I speak about is a broad understanding of rest, to relax, to exhale, to surrender, to trust. It's not do this one activity and it'll save your life. It's a way of thinking about your life. So, the surrender, I think maybe I mentioned it earlier, where, to let think that all is welcome to the party. When you are exhausted, we're trying to figure it out, right? But
Mm-hmm.
in rest, exhaustion's welcome. You can come and lay down here. Um, you can find peace with all the different things you battle with in life and in yourself in rest. So it's that kind of surrender where you're not fighting against yourself to try and achieve something. You rest without outcome.
Can you dive a little more into the surrender and the trust aspect? Because I think a lot of people, when they hear the term surrender, they, or at least it would, this is how I hear it a lot of times in my own head, is it's, well, just give up.
No,
And I don't think that's what you're talking about.
no, it's not giving up. It's not even letting go. People say, let's just let go, right? No, it's letting be. It's letting things be. And it's not that there's things that we don't like in the world and maybe change in ourselves. It's a level of acceptance that you can accept even the things that are let me take a moment with this. it's, there's some things I might not ever have peace with in my life or in the world, but I accept that I might not ever have peace with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to fight myself or try to make myself better or try to make something better. I can accept that there's some things I may not ever have peace with. That's okay. It's a kind of a acceptance, surrender, serenity. It's this place where, oh my God, I'm so tired. Oh my God, I'm just exhausted. And I'm like, as soon as you go, it's okay. It's okay. I can just rest. I can be exhausted. I can take a moment and let my body feel what it feels. It's letting be. And
So,
that's, and I don't mean letting be with the horrors of the world. I'm not talking about that. I'm
mm,
not talking about there's been an incredible tragedy and you're accepting that or surrendering to that. I'm not talking about that kind of surrender or acceptance. I'm talking about a surrender and acceptance of what you're feeling. That it's okay to feel rage about something. That it's okay to have your anger. It's okay to celebrate the smallest little thing. It's okay. And what happens is you're not making yourself wrong all the time. And then when you stop making yourself wrong, you have more space to rest and
mm,
be just as you are. Be however you are. It's that level of surrender and acceptance that I'm talking about. Is that clearer?
yeah, because to me, what I'm hearing is you're saying it's not it's not just giving up. It's saying, okay, this is the current reality right now. Is that I may be tired, or maybe I just had a great win in business, or maybe my wife and I just had a fantastic date. And instead of immediately just going, okay, I'm tired, but what's next? Or, oh, I had this great win, but what's next? It's taking that time to just reflect a little bit and sit in that moment of like, no, it's okay. I'm tired. Take that breath that you talked about, breathe it in, accept it, and then we can move forward.
Or take a moment to celebrate something,
Which I am
like you said.
terrible at. I am
We'll
not
work
good
on
at.
that. We have fun. What you're celebrating today, and I think there's some old thing that people used to say, which I don't usually, to feel is to heal, which I don't know what I think about that exactly, because there's a lot of things you don't want to feel and heal, but to take the time or the moment to go, yeah, this is just how I am right now. Because usually somebody's going to go, well, why? I mean, I remember when I was tired years ago, people were like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you tired? You slept well. Well, maybe there's a
Mm,
billion other things that are going on, or maybe there's a thyroid issue, or maybe, you're grieving, or, but the expectation is so high that we're always failing ourselves in
hmm.
this world,
Yeah.
and we do want to, some people have big desires and to accomplish a lot. And
I love that you brought that topic up because that is my Achilles heel is
which
that
topic?
that we're failing ourselves, that we see ourselves as failing ourselves because our standards or our expectations are so high. And
Right.
so that's why part of why I struggle to celebrate wins or to even take a break or allow myself to rest is because sure, I've reached this goal, I've set this new milestone, I've achieved this new thing, but it all that did was move me closer to where I want to be, which is great, but my focus never leaves where I want to be. And therefore the win, the success is to me, it may be a huge milestone from the outside, but to me, it's a small. It's nothing because I still have yet to achieve. I have yet to achieve what I've set for myself as my standard of life, where I want to be, and what's going on. Therefore, I'm still considering myself that failure. I've still failed by yet. by not reaching my expectations.
No, I hear that. I've had, one or two people in my life, one quite young. I did something very masterful in high school. I started a committee that, decades later is still going, and I started, initiated it, the whole thing. And he said, "How do you think you did?" And I went, "Nah." He said it was brilliant. He said he was brilliant. My 10th grade teacher or whatever. He said, "Your expectations are so high for yourself that you will always fail." As the first person who said that, I think it's wonderful to have hope, to have anticipation, and to have aspiration if we could let the expectation rest.
Mm.
And there's ways to do that. This is one of those moments where you sort of, you know, you know, key into something specific. It's like you can even, there's ways where you can, kind of sounds kind of strange, but, let your future self come and sit beside you. Go into a meditation, in a deep meditation, where you're in your future self, feeling empowered and peaceful and filled with space and just in the silence and serenity of that.
Mm.
And let that feed you rest, you know? Um, so to aspire and to, you know, there's another word I'm looking for. It starts with an A rather than expectation, but to have aspiration.
Mm-hmm. So what then becomes a healthy time period for rest?
Oh,
Because
that's individual.
okay.
Could be 10 years, it could be 1 minute.
Mm.
I mean, after grief, people are like, "Oh, you need to be up and moving in 3 months, a year, this, that, whatever." The, the psychiatric boards have really gone overboard with that. So sorry, won't even go give that the time of day here. You The time for rest is whatever your body, your mind, your heart, your soul needs, and that's going to be different from every other creature on the planet, and it's going to be different every day.
Mm.
And morning, noon, and night, it might be different. It's like people, ask about diets and all of that in that arena that I'm involved in too. And I'm like, your body changes from the time you're 13 to 40 to 70, and your food into everything changes, and what you need to take into your body in terms of food and rest, it's going to change. It's a relationship. You have a relationship with these, with rest, with
Mm.
sleep, with food, movement, medicine, sound. Yeah.
I love that, and I love that you're pointing out that it's an individual journey. I think
Yeah.
too many times we take cookie cutter solutions and try and use them across the board for everyone, and that's just not the case when it comes to life, because we all have different experiences, we all have different journeys, and therefore the remedy is going to be different, based on that individual person. And I just really love that, because I think we're moving into a world where everybody is setting expectations, but based on what they see other people doing. Well, this guy over here works 18-hour days and he does it 6 days a week. Well, he's different than you. He has a different metabolism. He has a different everything. Like, life is different when he goes home to rest. What he does for resting, those are very different things. So how can you compare yourself to that other human? Or maybe this other human eats a very different diet than you do. Well, that's because their body processes food very differently than you do. And everyone's experiences are very different. Therefore, you have to find what works out best for you. And that has been the journey that I've been like really trying to figure out is, what is my optimal work schedule? What is my optimal sleep schedule? What is my optimal actual resting schedule? And I'm so glad that we've redefined rest, because I focused too much of it on, up until this conversation, to me, rest has been 100% about how much time I sleep.
That's,
And
yeah. Yeah.
and, and if my body doesn't need the sleep, and my mind, and I've given my mind and my mental life like plenty of time to rest. And I just like, if it wants to keep working, if it wants to do other things, I'm trying to learn to be okay with that. I kept trying to put myself into this very structured, you go to sleep at this time, you get up at this time, you eat this amount of food, you train this time. And I felt like I was creating anxiety about the fact that I couldn't stick to this very structured routine that I was trying to box myself into. And I found that if I allow myself to, some nights I'll work till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I don't get out of bed as early. So I'm not getting up at 4:35, 5:45. Instead, I'm getting out of bed at 7. But then I go to bed a little bit earlier that next day, and I get up earlier the next day. And if I allow my body to fluctuate, unless like if there's meetings or whatnot, that will dictate my schedule a little bit. But if I allow myself to just go with the cycles that are already built into my body, I find myself stressed out a lot less. I'm more productive, and I enjoy life a whole lot more.
Yeah. There's a cycle of our own body, there's a cycle of nature, and there's a cycle of the expectations of others. And who do we want to listen to? And the ancients, too. I mean, I was reading about how people used to go to sleep. The sun went down and they'd go to sleep. And then, they might sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and then they would wake up for two. And they
Mm,
might do, in the middle of the night, quiet reading, our elders. And then they would go back to bed again. So it was not uncommon to wake up in the middle of the night for a few hours for them.
mm,
There's meditators in East India that are waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning to go into deep meditative states because that's a time that is very potent. So I love that you're lessening the expectation and the pressure on yourself, and you're giving yourself more space. And we look for what's optimal, but it has to be what's optimal for us on a day-to-day basis or a week or monthly basis. Um, and I love that you also mentioned the cookie cutter, because one of my big beasts is, forgive me out there, all the people who are cookie cutters, is like kind of cookie cutter healers. Oh well, if this is going on, if you've got a cough, that something's off with your throat chakra. If you've got this, something's going on with your heart. It's like this, like, let's go in the book, and it's not how it works. It's not how it works, folks. You have to really listen to the person in front of you, and you have to listen to the person in front of you, your own body, and
mm,
ask, what's right for me today? In the morning when you wake up, tune in. Don't jump right out of bed if you can afford not to. You know, don't have your cell phone right there and suddenly get on it. If you can take a moment in the morning to wake up and just go, wow, okay, I'm in a body. What were my dreams last night? And just rest for a few minutes in bed, feeling into the body, which that you asked me about earlier too, about resting. Sometimes focusing on your breath is very stressful, you know, and sometimes if you just take your hands and put them on your body and feel your body, or viscerally feel the belly rise and fall without focusing on the breath. Visceral experiences. So in the morning, let yourself be without jumping out of bed. If you're in a restful state, transition out of it easily.
mm.
Don't try and force yourself um, out and up to start running a marathon.
Yeah, I love that. Um, what would be the most important lesson that you've learned in life that you want to make sure you share with all the listeners?
And apart from rest, just in general, yeah, there is one. And it's be kind to yourself.
Mm,
When I watched over my mom, sometimes you're in a position where you're taking care of other people, right? And you're on the go all the time. And you can't slow down, you can't stop, and you can't rest. And you're on the treadmill, and you've got 2 jobs, and you're working 14 hours a day, and you got 5 kids. And somebody comes along and goes, well, take care of yourself. And you smack them. No, no. It just feels like an affront to your heart, because it's like you want to look at them like, are they from Mars? What do they mean? And I wish people had said to me, be kind to yourself.
Hmm.
Love yourself. Be kind to yourself. So I think no matter what's going on, no matter how difficult or beautiful your life is right now, try and find some spaces to rest and be kind to yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for such an amazing conversation. Where can the listeners go to connect with you, to purchase or sign up for your course about rest, or
Yeah.
get some of your meditation, some of the other products you offer?
Yeah. There's my website, and I guess that'll be in the show notes. Or
Mm-hmm.
there's my website. Um, there's a link specifically, which is on my website, but there's another link called howtorest.com. But the two is a numeral 2, the number 2, rest.com. There's another, again, it's on my website, but there's a specific, the How to Rest course is 20 parts, by the way. It delves in more into the relax, exhale, surrender, trust. And there's, I think, 7 different meditations and, I don't know, 15 different videos, and short lessons. It's very easy to go through and very accessible. And for those here who are listening to this in right now, there is a code. It's Rest Well, REST. Well, we'll put it in the show notes, where you get half price off. You'll get half price off the half of it for the next few months. I have one more. There are meditations there. There's all sorts of things in the shop. I have a program called Meditation by Design, and it's meditation-by-design.com. And we kind of skimmed by it today, where I work with somebody to find out and discover what they need for a specific meditation. So we work for 3 different times. I write up the meditation. I go into a professional studio and I give them a meditation that's right for them.
Hmm.
So when we talk about, cookie cutter or how to design something, how to get specific for a person. So
No, I
most of all, the
love that.
website. Yeah, thank you.
Personalized meditation. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Um, I will make sure, like you said, I will make sure to put all the links down below in the show notes as well as in the description, and as well as include that discount code for 50% off. So thank you for that offer. That's pretty amazing. So if you would
yeah,
like to get in touch with Elizabeth, like we said, the all the links you need will be down below in the show notes. And
yeah.
thank you everyone
You're
for
welcome. And we'll put that up for a couple of months. We'll have that there for I'll make it a nice, generous time. So tell
awesome.
your friends. Yeah.
I will, and I'll be sure to share that out. But thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you everyone for listening to the show. If you enjoyed this, please rate and review us, or like and subscribe. And Elizabeth, like I said, just thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great conversation.
No, thank you. I love talking with you, Chris. You get to pull and move me in all sorts of dimensions. It was terrific. It was beautiful. It's so calming and nurturing to talk with you. It was restful.
Oh,
Thank you.
well, thank you.